Hello everybody and welcome to today's edition of the Daf Yomi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining me. And today's glorious Daf is Daf 91a of Menachot. I'll give a quick summary of today's Daf. The main topic of today's Daf is libation and sachim, especially wine and oil that accompany many sacrifices in the temple. The Gemara meticulously examines the verses in Bimidbar chapter 15 which detail the laws of these libations. The key discussion revolves around the seemingly redundant word or in various verses. The Gemara asks, why do we need this extra word? The answer lies in the subtle nuances of Torah law. The word or teaches us that when a person brings multiple sacrifices, each one on its own requires its own set of libations. For example, if one brings a burnt offering, an olah, and a peace offering, a shlomim, as part of a single vow, the word or teaches that each one must have its own libations, not just one set for the entire vow. The Daf also delves into the laws of the guilt offering, the asham, specifically whether it requires libation. The Gemara concludes that even if the guilt offering is sacrificed as a burnt offering, it is still valid but requires libations. This is a fascinating conclusion that reveals the importance of libation and the validity of the sacrifice itself, even when there is a deviation from the proper procedure. The Gemara on Daf 91 concludes that the Torah is exact. Every single letter and every single word has a purpose. The seemingly extra word or is not superfluous. It is a vital teaching that establishes the principle of individual accountability for each offering. The purpose of the libation to adorn and enhance the sacrifice, and the Torah teaches that each sacrifice on its own is worthy of this adornment, regardless of whether it is part of a larger vow or offering. This lesson reminds us to find beauty and purpose in every individual mitzvah we perform. It's a beautiful day filled with the warmth of Torah. So let's dive straight in. See in Leviticus 1-2 it is written, and of the flock, and not merely of the flock. And it is as though the word together was written in the verse. So let's see what that means in the footnote. Kaman dichsiv yachvav dami. Some explanation of the statement are suggested by the early commentaries. Some say that the letter vav, which means and in the phrase and of the flock, teaches that these two types are combined, Rashi and Rashba. Others claim that it is derived from the change in the wording of the verses. Since it first says of the herd, it should likewise have simply stated of the flock with the addition of and. The verse as written indicates that the term of the herd serves to clarify the phrase of the animals, while the next term and of the flock serves to add to the previous phrase, as though it was stated together, as Rashi manuscript. Alternatively, as the term of the animal is a general term, it is clear that the subsequent two expressions are details to clarify this term. If so, the verse could simply have stated of the herd and flock. The longer phrase of the herd and of the flock indicates that the two types of animals are combined to Tosfot. Therefore, the verse in Numbers 15, which does state all of the flock, the necessary teach that this is not the case. The Gemara asks, and according to the opinion of Rabbi Shia, who said that even though it is not explicitly written in the verse, together it is as though it is written together, i.e. it is presumed that the halacha is fulfilled only when both details are realized, a verse should be required. Yet in the brighter, Rabbi Shia expounds the phrase of the herd or of the flock to teach a different halacha. From where then does he derive that one who takes a vow to bring a burnt offering does not need to bring both types of animals? And I'll explain, isn't it written if his offering is a burnt offering of the herd in Leviticus 1:3, and then in a separate verse it states, and if his offering is of the flock, Leviticus 1:9. The fact that these possibilities are presented in two disjointed verses is an explicit indication that the burnt offering can be bought from even just one of these animals. Therefore, even Rabbi Shia concedes that there is no reason to presume a burnt offering must be bought from both types there. The Gemara asks, and that's for the other Tana, Rabbi Yonatan, why does he require a verse at all? The Gemara explains it was necessary to have a verse to teach this, because otherwise it might enter your mind to say these statements, either the verses that indicate it is sufficient to bring just one type of animal concern a case where one specifies in his vow when they intend to bring just one animal, and the verses indicate that it is valid to bring just one. And if one vowed without specification, one might say, then I bring burnt offerings from both of them. Therefore, the phrase of the herd and of the flock teaches us that even in that case, it is sufficient to bring just one type of animal. The Gemara continues to analyze the brighter. The Master said in the Baita, from where is it derived that a peace offering requires libations? The verse states a sacrifice. From where is it derived that a thanks offering requires libations? The verse states or a sacrifice. The superfluous word or includes thanks offerings. The Gemara asks, is that to say that the thanks offering is not referred to as a sacrifice? It certainly is. Why then is it only included there the word or? The Gemara answers, an independent inclusion was necessary, as it might enter your mind to say, since in any event there is bread brought together with the thanks offering, it should not require libations. Rashi suggests two explanations of the statement. First, the fact that bread is brought with the thanks offering could be perceived as an indication that the animal is not significant in and of itself. Therefore, Rashi is required to teach that even a thanks offering requires libations. Rashi's second interpretation is that one might think that the bread takes the place of libations. Also, Rashi manuscript, some commentaries question this idea. Since the bread and libation are dissimilar, as libations are sacrificed to God on the altar, while the bread is given to the priest for consumption. Nevertheless, it might have thought that since the priest received their portion from God, the reason was to suggest that the meal offering is commonplace of libation, says the Rashba. The Gemara raises a question concerning this explanation, but in what way is the thanks offering different from a Nazarite's ram, as there is bread brought together with it also, and yet it requires libation? The verse states with regard to the ram of a Nazarite, and one blemish ram for a peace offering, and a basket of unleavened bread. Take the 5 flour mixed with oil, and unleavened wafers spread with oil, and the meal offering and libations. In Numbers 6:13-15, the Gemara answers, it might enter your mind to say that one should differentiate between the thanks offering and the Nazarite's ram is there. Together with the Nazarite's ram, he brings only 2 types of bread, loaves and wafers, whereas here, together with the thanks offering, one brings 4 types of bread. Therefore, one might have concluded that since there are many types of loaves, it does not require libation. For that reason, unless you have an independent derivation that teaches us that it does require libation. The Gemara analyzes another one of the derivations of the Baita. The verse states, and you will make a fire offering to the Lord, a burnt offering or a sacrifice in fulfillment of a vow clearly uttered or as a gift. This teaches that an offering that comes in fulfillment of a vow or as a gift offering requires libations. More challenges. But if it is the halacha, then let the merciful one write only in fulfillment of a vow clearly uttered or as a gift, and it will be unnecessary to write a burnt offering, as a burnt offering is the type of offering that can be brought as a vow or gift offering. The Gemara explains, had the merciful one not written a burnt offering, I would say the verse should be explained as follows. And you will make a fire offering to the Lord is a generalization, indicating that all offerings require libations. But then it states, fulfillment of vow clearly uttered or as a gift, which is a detail, indicating that the requirement applies only to offerings brought in fulfillment of a vow or as a gift. But when to make a pleasing aroma to the Lord, it is then generalized. If so, this is generalization and a detail, and then generalization. According to the principles of exegesis, you may deduce that the verse is referring only to items similar to the detail, just as it is explicit in referring to an offer that does not come to atone for a sin, but comes to fulfill a vow or gift. So too, any offering that does not come to atone for a sin requires libations. Accordingly, I would exclude a sin offering and a guilt offering, the requirement to have libations, as they come to atone for a sin. And I would include the firstborn offering, the animal tithe offering, the paschal offering, as they do not come to atone for a sin. In order to preclude the possibility of expounding the verses in this way, the verse states burnt offering. Talmud Loma Ola. The verse states burnt offering. The commentaries engaged in a dispute concerning this derivation from the term burnt offering. Some say that this term is included in the generalization, detail and generalization in the following manner. And you will make an offering, fire offering to the Lord is a generalization. A burnt offering or sacrifice in fulfillment of a vow clearly uttered or as a gift is a detail. And when the verse states to make a pleasing aroma to the Lord, it then generalizes again. Rashi, Rabbeinu Gershom, Moragol, and others claim that the term burnt offering is expounded by itself as an inclusion. It refers to the firstborn offering, the animal tithe offering, and the paschal offering, the Rashi manuscript. As an additional detail, which serves to further exclude offerings that are brought only in fulfillment of an obligation. The Gemara asks, now is written burnt offering, what do you include through the generalization and detail and generalization in this verse? The Gemara explains, just as the detail of burnt offering is explicit in referring to an offering that one has not always been obligated to bring, as is referring to a burnt offering brought in the fulfillment of a vow, which one became obligated to bring only once the vow was taken. So too, any offering that one had not always been obligated to bring requires libation. This serves to include the requirement for libations, the offspring of consecrated animals, e.g., of a female peace offering and substitute of consecrated animals. The offspring of a peace offering and the offspring of a substitute of a peace offering have the status of peace offerings in all regards, and they are sacrificed like standard peace offerings. Likewise, the offspring of a thanks offering and an offspring of a substitute of a thanks offering are sacrificed like standard thanks offerings. Sefer Korbanot, Tomorrow 1:4. A non-sacred animal with regard to which one stated that it should be a substitute for a consecrated animal, in which case the result is that both animals are consecrated must be sacrificed, and a burnt offering that comes from the proceeds of having sold surpluses of items into the temple that were not needed. This also serves to include a guilt offering, whose owner either died or achieved atonement through sacrifice another animal, and which was therefore consigned to grazing until it developed a blemish, at which point it should be sold and the proceeds used to purchase supplementary offerings for the altar. If instead the guilt offering itself is sacrificed as a burnt offering, it is valid. In such a case, the offering requires libations, and this also serves to include all offerings that were slaughtered not for their own sake. With regard to all offerings that were sacrificed not for their own sake, libations are sacrificed from Sefer 12:7. Such offerings were brought to fulfill the owner's obligation. Since they were not sacrificed for the sake of that purpose, the owner does not fulfill his obligation, but nevertheless the offerings are valid. In such a case, these offerings also require libation. The Gemara asks, and now that you have said that the word or in the phrase or a sacrifice is necessary for the derivation that teaches that the thanks offering requires libations, I can simply ask, why do I need the word or in the phrase in fulfillment of a vow clearly uttered or as a gift to separate between them? The Gemara explains, it was necessary to write or in that phrase, as it might enter your mind to say that until one brings both a vow and offering and a gift offering together, they do not require libations. The word or teaches us otherwise, that even if one brings a vow offering by itself, it requires libations. When one brings the gift offering by itself, he must bring libations. The Gemara challenges, this is well according to the opinion of Rabbi Shia, as he holds, whenever the Torah does not explicitly separate between two details stated with regard to halacha, it's presumed that halacha is fulfilled only when both details are realized. But according to the opinion of Rabbi Yonatan, who holds that in general it's presumed that either detail is sufficient, why do I need the word or? The Gemara explains, were it not for this word, it might enter your mind to say that although the halacha is that if one brings a vow offering by itself, it requires libations, if one brings a gift offering by itself, it requires libations. Nevertheless, if one brings both a vow offering and a gift offering together, it will be sufficient to bring libations for just one of them. Therefore, the word or teaches that libation is required for each offering. The Gemara asks, why don't you do it or in the phrase or on your festivals? The Gemara answers, it was necessary as it might enter your mind to say this matter, but even when two offerings are brought together, libations are required for each of them. It applies only when they are distinct both in the type of offering and in the nature of the obligation to bring them, such as where one brings a burnt offering in front of a vow and a peace offering as a gift, or vice versa, but where one brings a burnt offering and a peace offering both in front of a vow, or alternatively a burnt offering and a peace offering both as gift offering, one might have said that since in the former case both offerings are of a single type of commitment, i.e. a vow, and in the last case both are a single type of commitment, i.e. a gift offering, therefore it would be sufficient to bring libation for just one of them. Consequently, the word or in the phrase or on your festivals teaches us that even if they are distinct only in the type of offering, libations are required for each offering. The Gemara continues this analysis. Why do I need the word or in the verse? And when you prepare young bull for a burnt offering or for a sacrifice, in Numbers 59, the Gemara explains, it was necessary, as it might enter your mind to say that this matter, that when two offerings are put together, libation is required for each of them, applies only when the two offerings are distinct in the type of offering, such as where one brings a burnt offering and a peace offering, both in fulfillment of a vow, alternatively a burnt offering and a peace offering, both as a gift offering. But where one brings two burnt offerings, one fulfillment of a vow and one as a gift offering, alternatively two peace offerings, one fulfillment of a vow and one as a gift offering, I would say that since in the former case both offerings are of a single type of offering, I have peace offering, and in the latter case both offerings are a single type of offering, I have burnt offering, therefore it would be sufficient to bring libation with just one of them. Consequently, the word or teaches us that even if they are distinct only nature of the commitment to bring them, libation required for each offering. The Gemara continues. Why do I need the word or in the verse? In fulfillment of a vow clearly uttered or for peace offerings. In Numbers 15:8, the Gemara answers, it was necessary, as it might enter your mind to say that this matter, that when two offerings are brought together, libation required for each of them, applies only where two offerings are distinct from each other, i.e. in the nature of the commitment to bring them on the type of offering, such as where one brings two burnt offerings, in fulfillment of a vow, and one as a gift offering, or alternatively two peace offerings, one in fulfillment of a vow and one as a gift offering, but where one brings two burnt offerings, both in fulfillment of a vow, or two burnt offerings, both as a gift offering, alternatively two peace offerings, both in fulfillment of a vow, two peace offerings, both as a gift. I might have said, with regard to the first of these cases, that since both offerings are of a single type of offering, i.e. a burnt offering, and of a single type of commitment, i.e. a vow, and likewise with regard to the other cases, therefore it would be sufficient to bring libation with just one of them. Consequently, the word or teaches us that even if the offerings are not distinct from each other at all, libations are nevertheless required for each one. The Brisa teaches that according to Rabbi Yonatan, in the word or in the phrase of the herd or of the flock, teaches that one who takes a vow to bring a burnt offering fulfills his obligation even when he brings only one animal, either from the herd or from the flock. The Gemara asks, and as for Rabbi Shia, why do I need the word or in this phrase of the herd or of the flock? Although the Brisa explains that he expounds the phrase to teach that one does not bring libation with the burnt offering, as it does not explain what is derived from the word or. The Gemara explains the word or is necessary, as otherwise it might enter your mind to say that this matter, when two offerings are brought together, libation required for each of them, applies only where one brings two kinds of animals, i.e. one from the flock and one from the herd. But where both animals are of a single kind, a section of this passage appears in brackets, where one brings two kinds of animals too. You might enter your mind to say that this matter applies in the next paragraph. The text of some commentaries include this section, which they explain as follows. It might have been thought that one brings libations for each and every offering only when they come from two types, the herd and the flock. But if both are from the herd, or both are from the flock, one brings libations only for one offering. And the sage Gemara inquires with regard to the derivation of the phrase, so you shall do for each one, and it explains that it might have been thought that one brings two libations only when the offering is consecrated one after the other, whereas if they're consecrated at the same time, it's sufficient to bring libations of one offering. Therefore, the phrase, you shall do for each one, teaches that this is not the halacha. If so, there are two separate discussions. Some of the latter commentaries raise difficulties with regard to this explanation and maintain that there is one single passage. So in Kedoshim, the commentators have a version of the Gemara which omits the section in brackets. According to the version, there is only one question and answer here. The Gemara asks what the phrase of the herd of the flock teaches according to the opinion of Rabbi Shia, and it explains that it might have been thought that the requirement of two libations applies only when the offerings are consecrated one after the other, but not if they are consecrated at the same time. It would be sufficient for him to bring libations for just one of them. Therefore, the word or teaches us that even if the offerings are the same kind of animal, libations are nevertheless required for each one. Later in the passage concerning libations, so shall be done for each young bull, or for each ram, or for each of the lambs, or of the goats, according to the number that you may prepare. You shall do for each according to their number. Numbers 15:11-12. The Gemara asks, why don't I need this verse? The Gemara explains, it is necessary, as it might enter your mind, to say that this matter, that when two offerings are brought together, libation required for each of them, applies only where the offerings were consecrated one after the other. But if they were consecrated at the same time, it is sufficient to bring libation for just one of them. Therefore, the verse teaches us that in all cases, one must separate libations for each animal. The Mishnah teaches that in general, sin offerings and guilt offerings do not require libations, but the exception is that the sin offering of a leper and his guilt offering requires libations. require libations. The Gemara asks, from where are these matters derived? They are derived from a verse, as the sages taught in a Bible concerning the following verse, which Jesus, the offering of a leper, is required to bring as part of his purification process, and on the 8th day he shall take 2 unblemished male lambs, and 1 unblemished female lamb this year, 3/10 of fine flour for a meal offering mixed with oil, and 1 log of oil. In Leviticus 14:10. The Bible explains, with regard to a meal offering that comes with an animal offering, that the verse speaks, and so it is stating that each of the 3 offerings mentioned require libation. The Bible continues, do we say that it is with regard to a meal offering that comes with an animal offering that the verse speaks, or perhaps it is only with regard to a meal offering that comes by itself? The verse states in the continuation of that passage, and the priest shall sacrifice the burnt offering and the meal offering, in Leviticus 14:20, which demonstrates that the meal offering accompanies the burnt offering. You must say that in the earlier verse as well, it is with regard to a meal offering that comes with an animal offering that the verse speaks. But still, I do not know whether this meal offering requires wine libations or whether it does not. Therefore, the verse states, and wine pouring for libation according to him, which you prepare with the burnt offering or for the sacrifice for the 1 lamb, Numbers 15:5. The verse expounded as referring to each of the lepers offering the burnt offering, referring to the burnt offering of a leper, the sacrifice referring to the sin offering of a leper. And as for the word or in the phrase or for the sacrifice, this is referring to the guilt offering of a leper. The Gemara suggests, and let the Tana divide both the sin offering and guilt offering, the word sacrifice alone, without relating it to the word or. So we'll leave you on that cliffhanger. Thank you for listening, and all the best, and peace in Israel. Bye.